Yeah. So this is kind of jokingly, but I used to say this is gynecology made simple. And again, I'm not bashing doctors. This is what I was taught, and if I never looked outside that box, I would still be doing it. Okay, so
Right.
I'm not bashing doctors. They're doing what they were taught. I was doing what I was taught, and so that is definitely not what I'm saying. But I did get out of that box, and I start because medicine insurance makes you have blinders on. Is
It
that
does.
this is the only way that you do it. And so I knew what I was about to say. I used to say gynecology made simple. Is that when is that this is what I when I look back and to see what was I doing, if any patient came in, if they were 40 or less, it doesn't matter what their problems was, irregular bleeding, fibroids, doesn't matter. You gave them birth control pills because that's the only thing that we had. Okay. So if you were over 45 or 50, you would give them uh, Premarin if they didn't have a uterus, and you give them Premarin Provera if they did.
Right.
Simple. Okay. If none of that worked, then the next thing is surgery. Cut something out, an ovary, a ablation, or whatever.
Yeah.
And
That's me.
I would say, yeah. And so, but then I would also say, hey, look, then you would get an antidepressant so you wouldn't feel so bad about how bad you feel.
Hmm.
And so, but to be honest with you, that is what we did. Birth control
Right.
pills. that- and so I'm like, that's very simple instead of looking at what became non-functional. This
Right.
woman was functional for all her life. Now something has changed. Okay.
Mhm.
And it's not because she had a decrease in antidepressant medicine. Something changed. What
Right.
changed? Her hormone levels change, her stress level change. As you get older, you have more stressors. Okay, you
Hmm.
got kids, you got husbands, you got elderly parents. And so all of that is affecting these women. And
Right.
I like saliva testing, especially about cortisol, so I can show them this is what life has done to you. It has worn you down. You can't respond like you used to. I used to deliver babies. I get up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and do a delivery. It was exhilarating. When I got into my 40s, it was exhausting. I said, I can't keep doing this.
Yeah.
So, everybody, men and women, have this midlife crisis, I believe. So,
Mhm.
anyway, so let's talk about how you joined, why you called your program Faithfully
Mm.
Yours.
Yeah.
Okay.
Faithfully strong wellness.
Mhm.
That's a great question. I have to tell you is that what I found, I've been in the church all my life, and what I did find is that a lot of women felt like it was a time in their life that they were feeling deserted. And I can say it's because within the church itself, no one really talks about a woman in the change, okay? If you think about the issue of blood that the woman had who touched, Jesus's garment, that's about the only time you hear about it in the Bible. And
Yeah.
so women were just silent and suffering alone. And they were feeling like, during this time that God deserted them. And he hasn't, faithfully
Mhm.
strong means that you still can have the faith to move through this transition and be the strong woman you always have been. And yes, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. You're just going into a different part of your life at this time. And so I wanted women to truly understand that their body was still a temple and they still had the ability to be able to communicate with it, but it was communicating to them differently. And
Yeah.
to understand that they could still have the faith to keep moving through this time period and to actually bring it up in churches. I mean, now I happen to belong to a very huge church, one of those ones that has 15 locations. And I have found that even the men want something because they want to understand why their woman's going through this so that they can support them. So I've been able to put together resources with scripture so that the man also can help during this time through a couple's guide. And that's important because women otherwise will just feel like they're all alone in this. I asked my husband not too long ago, do you know what menopause is? He didn't. He lives with me.
Mhm. Uh,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah.
So
And that's what.
imagine most women.
Yeah. And that's why I say everybody is confused.
Mhm.
Everybody. And again, I did a lecture called Great Divorce. A lot of divorces happen during this time because of this miscommunication.
Right.
Men think their men think they've been deserted because their wife has changed, and
Right.
they feel neglected. They feel like, what happened to my wife? And I used to get Christmas cards from guys who'd say, thank you for giving me my wife back.
Oh,
Okay. And so that's what I'm talking about. I mean, and again, why am I doing this? Because that's what I've experienced in my 40 years of marriage. I've gone through all of that, all of that stuff. And you talk about being in church. My dad was a Baptist minister, so I grew up in
mhm,
church. And I actually did a lecture because I was an OBGYN about the woman with the issue of blood. And what Jesus said to her is that your faith has healed you.
right.
Okay. And so
Yes,
it wasn't, so he was saying it's not necessarily me, it's your faith in me. And
right.
so I used to say she had to have the knowledge that this was a person who could help. And that's
Mhm,
why I say this is how I try to make it where it's practical. You had to find someone that you had faith in. Now, like I said, I know it was Jesus, is that, but you found a functional medicine doctor that you had
yes,
faith in, and your
right.
faith helped to heal you. Okay, so that's how I used to say that. She had to have the knowledge that, oh, this person can help me. And
Right.
then she fought through and said, I have faith, the faith healed me. And I have to say, that's the same way with anybody. People have to have faith in me that I know what the heck I'm talking about. Okay.
Yeah.
You had to have faith in me to say, okay, I'll go on his podcast because I have faith that this may help somebody. So
Mhm,
that's how I look at it. I try my best to say, how can scripture and spirit live in me and not just be something far off that I want to do. So anyway, that
absolutely.
that's that's my thought process. And the other thing, I think when you can add science to prove that the
Mhm,
things in the Bible are true, and that's what's exciting to me, is that a lot of these spiritual doctrines can now be tested. And we're finding that, and the reason why I call this Ageless Blueprint is that the blueprint of how we're supposed to live has been written for the ages.
right.
So that's why I say there's a lot of just truth that just makes total sense. And now we're able to say, oh, yeah, I don't know how these people knew this, but
Mhm.
this is how we're supposed to live.